Hello, my name is Rajan Arora and welcome to my course Essentials of SQL Server Performance for Every Developer. You are watching the video of Module 5 capturing what your application is doing inside SQL Server. Part 1 Module Introduction. If you are new to this course, please start it from the course introduction video for better understanding. Thank you. In this module, we are going to talk about the ways you can trace all your data access statements inside of SQL Server. And by trace, I mean capture each statement your application runs inside of SQL Server, along with some performance statistics about that statement. Why would we want to do this? Well, there are a couple of common reasons. One, as a developer, we might want to know exactly what a process inside one of our applications is doing inside of SQL Server. Maybe we are trying to debug a process that doesn't seem to be working correctly, or maybe we have taken over support of an existing application. What tracing allows us to do is to see the exact SQL statements the application is running with their values and the order in which they are being run so we can tell exactly what table are being hit and how they are being used, which is really useful for debugging. Second, when we use the tracing capabilities that are built into SQL Server, we can get detailed performance information for each statement that is being executed from our application. In the last module, we saw how we can get aggregate statistics like average CPU time or average logical reads by querying SQL Server's dynamic management views. As we will see, when we trace our data access in SQL Server, we will be able to get statement level statistics for each statement that is run, so we can really understand in detail how each statement is performing. So, we might use tracing in one of our development environments to understand how one of our applications is working. Or we might use it in a test environment during a load test of our application to gather detailed information about what parts of our data access are performing and which parts needs to be tuned. And finally, we could even use a trace in our production environment if we wanted to capture detailed information about every statement that took over a certain amount of time, let's say 5 seconds, or exceeded some other performance threshold. In SQL Server, there are two different ways which you can trace what is happening inside of the database. And which one you choose depends on the version of SQL Server that you are running. If you are running SQL Server 2008 R2 or earlier, you should use a tool called SQL Profiler, and this is provided as a separate GUI in the SQL Server client tools. If you are running SQL Server 2012 or later or using SQL Azure, then you are going to use what are known as SQL Server Extended Events to perform your trace. Going forward, SQL Server Extended Events are going to be standard and in fact the only way to perform a trace in SQL Server. As the SQL Profiler tool was depreciated in SQL Server 2012, you can check out this on Microsoft site with the link shown on screen. But you will still find SQL Profiler widely used, so we will cover it. But note that the trend is moving towards extended events. So, if you are on SQL Server 2012 or later, you want to be investing your time in learning how to use extended events and probably skip learning Profiler. Regardless of which approach you end up taking, running a trace on SQL Server requires some pretty high level permission in the database, which we will discuss when we demonstrate each approach. This is because a trace can capture every SQL statements and its value that are being executed against the database. And clearly, there are some security concerns in letting someone do this. If you have SQL Server installed on your workstation, you will be able to run a trace for any local testing that you do against that local instance. For your development and test environments, if you will be able to run a trace is going to be vary by company. In production, you will almost certainly not have permission to run a trace by yourself and will need to engage someone from your DBA team to help you run a trace. However, don't be discouraged by this. Quite the opposite. Being able to trace all of your application's SQL is a powerful capability, and it is important that you have a developer be aware of its capability and what it can do, so that when you need to do it, you know that the capability exists and you can ask for it. So what we are going to do in this module is guide you through using both SQL Profiler and SQL Server extended events to take a trace. For each method, I will show how to set up a trace, including what events you can log, how you can filter the data you capture, and how you log this data to a file for later review. I will also discuss what you need to do in order to analyze this data. When we are finished, you will have a good overview of how to set up a trace in both tools and a good idea of what data you can capture within SQL Server. This will help you understand what tracing capabilities exist in SQL Server, so you know when a trace might be useful in your application development process. So let's get started by looking at the SQL Profiler tool in the next video. If you like this video, please do share, like and subscribe to my channel for more such videos. Thank you and see you in the next video.